Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today we're continuing our series on the ancient secrets. In this series, we have explored ancient teachings from Rosicrucians on a variety of subjects, on alchemy, on thought power, on psychic development and psychic projection. The Rosicrucians were amazing in the way that they gathered data from old sources and then assembled patterns that they found. Some of this research and knowledge comes from thousands of years ago, and they have kept this knowledge and experimented and utilized this and gathered ancient secrets that we can use today for a variety of things. This is a fascinating subject because they discuss prayer. Rosicrucians discuss the power of prayer and the many kinds of ways that you can pray properly and for your prayers to be answered. Let's discuss the ancient secret of the power of prayer. This comes from the writings of Joseph J. Weed on the wisdom of the mystic masters, in which he outlines Rosicrucian teachings on a variety of subjects. There's probably no religious practice so generally accepted, yet so little understood, as prayer. Every person you meet will tell you he has received an answer to prayer. Regardless of caste, nationality, color, or creed, all men have experienced that definite sequence of request and fulfillment described as prayer. A man prays for money, and the postman brings him the needed amount. A woman prays for food, and food is brought to her door. But on the other hand, there is evidence of prayers apparently unanswered, of hungry people starving to death, of the child which dies in spite of its parents' most passionate appeals to God. Any study of prayer will reveal contradictions and many facts which are strange and puzzling. A trivial prayer meets with an answer while one on an important matter fails. A simple ailment is relieved while an agonized petition to save a beloved life meets with no response. A devout person will say, "It is the will of God," and question no further. But the Rosicrucians are not content with this. As esoteric students, they realize that in prayer certain laws are at work, laws which must be discovered, identified, and understood. Let us first analyze prayer as the average person knows it. This word is used to cover various activities of the consciousness, and prayers cannot be examined as if they were all the same. First, we have the prayer which petitions for physical aid or material assistance. The most general definition describes it as a petition placed before a person or being who is presumed to be in a position to grant it. With this goes the assumption that the person or being can grant the petition without sacrifice or effort, and with but little inconvenience to himself. Note that prayer is described as a petition to a person or a being in a position to grant it. We do not say that prayer is a petition to God, although it may well be. Since most prayers are for some physical or material aid, very few of them are actually directed to God as the first cause. People are usually a little self-conscious in asking for material benefits, and are reluctant to place such a mundane petition before the highest one. Also, much of the religious teaching over the past 2,000 years has tended to make man fear God and to feel separated from him. Thus, God, or the first cause, has become cold and remote to the vast majority of people, much like the president of a large corporation or the head of a great banking institution. Many feel, therefore, that their prayers cannot or will not reach God, and so they direct them to some being or person who seems more accessible and who at the same time may be more understanding and tolerant of the human weakness behind the petition. As far back as man can remember, sailors have prayed to the sea, or to some entity they conceived of as the god of the sea. They have prayed for a safe and speedy passage, a full catch of fish, or for rescue in a storm. They've also prayed to the winds and to Aeolus, to the wind god, as recently as a year or two ago in a race of sailing craft from California to Hawaii. The crew of one boat, at the time in the voyage deemed most propitious, sacrificed 3 chickens to the gods of the sea. These were not superstitious South Sea natives, but wealthy American businessmen and sportsmen. The fact that their boat eventually won has no bearing on the point made here, which is that this act was performed in all seriousness and represented a form of prayer. I mention this because it is a fair example of a type of petition or prayer which has always been employed by men. Sometimes a propitiatory offering is made, sometimes not. Are these prayers actually offered to some disembodied intelligence, as they seem to be, or is this merely a device to focus attention upon the desired objective without an actual realization of the mental machinery being set in motion? Think about this. In certain religions, we find prayers being offered to holy ones or saints more often than God himself. Years ago, an unscrupulous priesthood encouraged this human tendency because it increased their numbers, prestige, and income. History tells how the priests of Egypt called for a return of the old gods after Amenhotep had proclaimed that there is but one supreme being. This was not only a political device to regain temporal power, it was also a direct effort to obtain more money, for by multiplying the gods, the gifts were also multiplied. Today in India and China, the devout pray to Buddha. In Russia, they pray to Saint Sergius. In Italy, to Saint Anthony. In this country, to Saint Teresa, the Little Flower. In Iran, they pray to Muhammad, and in all parts of the Christian world to the Holy Family, Jesus, Saint Joseph, and the Blessed Mother Mary. Actually, there are hundreds of beings in all religions to whom petitions and prayers are daily addressed in the hope that they will recognize the justness and fairness of their request, understand and sympathize with the motives of the petitioner, and use their power or influence to help provide the material advantages asked for. Thus we see that in the first and most common type of prayer, which is prayer for material benefit, the petitions are sometimes directed to God, but far more often to some other entity or person which the petitioner believes is in a position to grant his request and may be persuaded to do so. If we probe the mind of a petitioner and ask, "Why did you pray to St. Anthony and not directly to God?" we find that he feels that St. Anthony was poor once and can understand how much I need this money. And if we ask another, "Why have you prayed to the Mother Mary instead of God?" the answer comes, Mother Mary is a woman and she will understand what a man cannot. As we look into the hearts of these people, we realize how childish most prayers are, and we begin to understand why it is that some are granted and others not. Here among the average people of the world, there is no understanding of prayer. They are like children asking their parents for what they want. Sometimes they get it and sometimes they don't. But they never quite know why, and they seldom understand enough and have confidence enough to set out to obtain these things on their own. One of the primary objectives of the Rosicrucians is to teach people how to lift themselves out of this childish dependence upon others and train them to use natural law for themselves. Their students are given exercises in concentration. They are taught to focus their attention upon an object and hold it there. Their memories are trained, and a serious attempt is made to help them rid themselves of outworn inhibitions and erroneous ideas. They are taught that appeals for needed material things should be made to the cosmic, the great storehouse of supply, and are given the techniques which, when properly employed, are designed to tap this universal storehouse. These students are taught a practical method of prayer for material needs, an adult approach to the problem of supply, which can be made to work most of the time once it is understood. It is not a hit-or-miss method. If the demands are unselfish, or at least not too selfish, and their granting will not hurt anyone else, they will manifest on the material plane. It is this technique, which I will give in capsule form later in this episode. The petition for light. The next level of prayer is the petition for light, for instruction to aid a man in his desire to come closer to God. This is aspiration and is almost always directed to God or to the Supreme Being. Many people pray in this way. A substantial segment of all humanity feels the yearning of aspiration at one time or another, but usually at different levels of understanding. One asks for help in moral or spiritual difficulties, another for spiritual growth. A third pleads for strength to overcome temptations, a fourth for insight, and so on. This is going on continuously all over the world, and its chorus is referred to as the invocative cry of humanity. It is this aspiration, this request for spiritual help, which brings response from on high in the form of hierarchical teaching and guidance. It is because this invocative cry is today so loud and strong that we have such a vast flow of revelation in all parts of the world. The Rosicrucian order is one of the major channels of this flow, and the thousands of students in the order have come there because they have consciously or unconsciously raised their hearts in aspiration and petition for guidance and help. The third form of prayer is called meditation. In it, the student seeks attunement with the higher elements of his being, and also petitions help and assistance, much as in the first form of prayer. But with this essential difference, the help is almost never for himself. When he does register himself as a beneficiary, it is in order that he may gain in strength or wisdom or skill so that he may help others. Here, then, are the three general levels of prayer as it is understood and employed by 99% of the people. It is not for us to judge the quality of these prayers or whether they are good or bad, but they have all one common element: they look to another for help. By implication, the one praying thus confesses his inability to help himself. In the opinion of the Rosicrucians, this is where the error lies. We can obtain from life anything we want. It is up to us to find out how to get it and then have the persistence to keep after it until we do. Let me explain to you the Rosicrucian concept of prayer. In order to understand a Rosicrucian prayer, a Rosicrucian mental creation, you must first realize that it is a scientific process, and it will always work if all the elements are properly provided. If it doesn't work, it means that one or more elements were missing or the process was improperly performed. A homely example is the baking of a cake. You need flour and water and milk and an egg or two and butter and flavoring to make a good cake. Even if you have all these ingredients, you will not have a cake unless you know what to do with them and when to do it. When you have learned this and have mixed everything in the right proportions and in proper sequence, the resulting dough must be baked. Here the heat must be just right and must be applied for the suitable length of time. If it is too hot, the cake will burn. If not hot enough, it will be flat and doughy. So you can see that a great deal of knowledge and skill is required in addition to good ingredients in order to make a good cake. A Rosicrucian prayer is just as complex, and when you know how, just as simple. Not many people really learn, unfortunately. If they were sifting flour or stirring in eggs, they would learn in a short time to never overlook a step or leave out an ingredient. But when a sifting of thoughts and a baking in psychic energy is demanded, the problem in some unaccountable way seems to become much more complicated and difficult. But it is not really. Once you learn, it is as easy as swimming or riding a bicycle, both small miracles to one who has not yet acquired the skill. First, I will tell you what you need to do to pray as a Rosicrucian, and after that I will tell you what not to do. For strangely enough, there are many things that must be avoided. Prayer is creative visualization. Rosicrucian prayer is more often called creative visualization. We all visualize many times a day. Some of us are more thorough than others. Rachmaninoff said once that he never performed on the concert stage without having played every number over in his mind the night before. He could hear every note and knew precisely where each finger should fall without either a piano or the musical score behind him. This is amazingly thorough visualization requiring the utmost in concentration, and the magnificent results proved its value. A good architect will see in his mind the completed house before he ever sets pencil to paper. Every closet, every stairwell will be placed in his visualization well in advance of the first step in preparing the blueprint. These professionals, the great musicians and the leading architects, and indeed all successful planners, are very good visualizers, but for the most part their efforts stem from a need, emotional or physical, which is present before them. The architect is given a commission, the musician has a concert planned, the businessman a product to sell. What you are to learn is the art of visualizing without a compelling need forcing you to action. There is no secret to visualization. Everyone has this ability. But you must learn to visualize in such a way that the image you create will tend to objectify, to manifest itself as an object or an event in the physical world. For the musician and the architect, this is a natural sequence. The one plays a piano concerto and the other produces the plan of a building. But you, who may have neither piano nor drawing board, nor indeed the skill to use them, must seek a different method. It is a simple technique and can be used to solve many problems. However, before putting this process into operation, it is wise to understand the laws involved. First, you must know exactly and quite clearly what it is that you desire to manifest. Your desire cannot cover a multitude of things, only those involved in your immediate need. When you have brought your primary objective into manifestation or physical existence, then and only then may you turn to another objective. Nearly everyone's mind is cluttered up with rambling thoughts of no consequence. It is first necessary to clear your mind of these intruders and hold but one thought dominant, the thought of what you want. Having thus prepared yourself, you are ready to start the visualization. For this, it is advisable to find a place where you will not be interrupted or distracted for about 30 minutes. The actual visualization is not intended to last that long, but it may take you a while to clear your mind and bring it into some resemblance of rest. When you have settled yourself comfortably in the place you have chosen, proceed first to relax. Start with a conscious effort to relax physically. Relax your toes, your ankles, the calves of your legs, your knees, the muscles in your thighs. Relax your middle body, your fingers, your hands, your wrists, the muscles in your forearms and shoulders. Relax your neck, your face muscles, and the tiny muscles around your eyes and ears and in your scalp. This will take 3 or 4 minutes, and when accomplished, will leave you feeling much quieter. Now it is time to turn your attention to your mind. Since it is virtually impossible for the average person to slow down and stop the rapid flow of his thoughts, a device is now used. See in your mind's eye and with your physical eyes closed a blank screen like a motion picture screen. See it filling the entire space before you and visualize it as well lit up with a white light, as you have sometimes seen it between films. Now willfully, carefully, and meticulously start to assemble on the screen of your consciousness a living, detailed picture of that which you wish to make manifest. Make it a living picture. See it as though it actually exists before you. This will require a singleness of purpose, a good imagination, and an ability to concentrate, none of which come naturally, but must be acquired by practice. At first, you will do very few things right, I am sure, but with practice, you will become more skillful. The Rosicrucians teach that every man and woman alive is endowed with the ability to create on the material plane. But in order to do so, we must learn to use tools we have been given. The first is the ability to visualize, and the second is the imaginative faculty. These must work together. The imagination must provide the pictures either from recollection or by combining parts of recollected pictures and ideas to create new ones. And then these pictures must be thrown onto the screen of our consciousness and held there. They must have duration in order to outpicture themselves in physical material and events. The longer you can hold the exact picture without change, the more rapidly will it manifest. This is where the ability to concentrate comes in, the third point on this creative triangle. I would stop here and say, that's all there is to it. And I would be right. You have all the basic ingredients, but you know and I know there are a lot of questions unanswered, so I will try to be more specific. To most people, the foregoing technique sounds too simple. Some don't believe it will work and so kill all chances of success before they even start. For one of the essential ingredients is a complete and abiding confidence that what you visualize will come about. Others, seeing how simple it is, become careless and go about it in a half-hearted fashion. This is almost as if the person about to bake a cake were to put all the ingredients into the pan without properly mixing them. Some people find it difficult to visualize and others to concentrate, so you see it is not easy. But it can be done, and it can be learned in a reasonably short time if you're willing to practice regularly, as you would most surely have to in order to acquire any other skill. Now let me add some important details. If, for example, your objective is the successful closing of a business deal or the starting of a new venture, build a picture in your mind that portrays the crucial point in the transaction where the final successful act is performed. By holding this picture in your mind, clearly and strongly for 2 or 3 minutes at a time, you are literally creating that same situation in fact. Remember, in a situation like the one described, you are dealing with the material world, and to make changes in matter, energy is required. The greater the degree of change, the more energy is needed. A simple manifestation may result from a single creative meditation. A large project may require 100. The laws of physics apply here just as they do everywhere in the known universe. In creating the picture, many different techniques may be employed. You may consider yourself an artist, and the blank screen of your mind the canvas before you. Paint in then, with full color, the image you wish to have appear. Use your imagination and fill it in with sound and scent as well as color. If it is out of doors, feel the warmth of the sun and the cool caress of the breeze. Make it real. End each period of visualization by turning the whole picture inward. The process is something like swallowing, but you use your mind instead of your throat. Then forget it. Don't permit your thoughts to turn back to what you have done, and do not permit any faint images of the picture you painted to trail in your imagination. Put it completely out of your mind. This is essential because as long as you hold on to it mentally, you are siphoning off the energy which is necessary to its ultimate manifestation. When you have started energy working in your behalf by repeated visualizations of your desired objective, make every physical effort possible to bring it about. Do not sit back as if to say, I defy you to manifest. Do what you can to help open the avenues of all possibilities. It is much easier to go through an open door than one which is closed. Remember too, you must be convinced that what you are planning is good and desirable, and that it will not hurt anyone. This is not a question of God stopping an evil deed, although at times it may seem that way, but of your own conscience short-circuiting the energy. Only an extremely evil and undeveloped person will have the ability to avoid this type of mental inhibition. Permit me to caution you against planning recklessly. The story of the genie in the bottle, who granted 3 wishes, all of which turned to be foolish in an example. Certain possibilities exist for everyone, and your mental creations will be happy and successful if they keep within bounds. You may think that nothing is impossible, and today this is very nearly literally true. But that does not mean that nothing is impossible to me or to you. We both have our limitations. I have mine and you have yours. Suppose you have had a sudden urge to set foot on the moon. As we now know, this is not an impossibility, but it is for me and it may be for you, so it would be foolish to consume energy in an endeavor to satisfy a futile and vain desire. Let me give you an example of the way this law of creation can work when it is not applied properly. This is as reported by a Rosicrucian neophyte, a workman in a factory who, when he learned of this law, decided to use it to get $5,000. He persisted in this visualization daily for several months until it gradually became more and more real to him, as it does. But he took no other action and did not in any other way try to earn or obtain this money. One day while at work, he slipped and fell into one of the machines in such a way that his foot was crushed. Fortunately, when he got out of the hospital, he was able to walk once again by wearing a special shoe, but the whole front of his foot was gone. The company paid his bill, gave him full salary while he was away from work, and treated him well in every way. On the day he returned to the plant, the general manager asked him to come to his office, and there offered him a check for $5,000 if he would agree not to make any further claim against the company. It was then and only then this man realized how he was responsible for what had happened and where he himself had failed, and so told us the story to help others. Energy that is built up demands release, and if we do not open doors for it and guide it in the proper direction, it is likely to break out in the undesirable way. The art of mental creation here, described as its name indicates, is an act of the mind whereby energy is accumulated and directed toward a desired objective. But the Rosicrucians also teach a different kind of prayer, which in some cases is much more effective. This prayer is not based on mind and will, but upon love. It works best when you pray for another. In fact, you might say it doesn't work at all for oneself. I guess this is because we already love ourselves too much, but in the wrong way. We will probably have to develop spiritually a great deal more before we can learn to pray for ourselves by loving ourselves. But we can help others by sending them love. Let me explain this. There is an energy just as distinct and just as powerful as mental energy, which for want of a better word we call love. The warmth of the heart we feel for a loved one is the nearest sensation to the physical reaction we experience from this energy. Yet it is not sentimentality, nor is it physical love, but something different and more refined. And it is a definite energy. To the astral senses, it is quite tangible and pink in color, not a paint or pigment, but the pink of light, like a glorious sunset. This is an energy which we can consciously accumulate and then give to another. It is like food, like nourishment to his entire being, and benefits the recipient in every way. Only good comes from this love. Here you need never fear an error. Every giving, every sending is good. This is what Jesus Christ endeavored to explain to the people of his time. There are many techniques for employing this larger, grander love. All religions suggest one form or another, but these are usually cloaked in the atmosphere of the particular dogma of that religion. There are also many simple procedures which have no connection with any organized religion. Here's one which works really well. This technique combines three elements: a visualization, a feeling, and an act of the will. As in the Rosicrucian prayer given earlier, both visualization and will are necessary, as they are in almost all human efforts to control energy. But a new element is here added, that of feeling. The procedure is as follows. 1. Create a feeling of love, of warmth, of goodwill in your breast, in the vicinity of your heart. Visualize this as a glowing pink aura which emanates from the heart and completely surrounds your body. 2. Then visualize, see clearly in your mind's eye the person or group or entity you wish to help. 3. By an act of the will, now send a portion of your aura in the form of a pink cloud to the object of your love. Feel love for this person or object and see the pink cloud encapsulate him or her in a pink aura of protection. 4. Then immediately dismiss all thoughts from your mind and regard it as mission accomplished. When this technique is properly performed, the results are amazing. Usually the treatment must be repeated for many days before the results are apparent, but eventually they show up in the most remarkable manner. In sending love, it is important that no specific result is desired or foreseen. There must be no such planning by the sender. The manifestation must be left to the intelligence of the soul force actuating the energy. And when this is done, it always comes out in the most desirable manner. Sometimes the results are on the emotional level only, but always they are most practical. In a 6-month test involving 7 beneficiaries, which was conducted 2 years ago, 2 of them received obvious emotional and psychic help, but the other 5 got amazing physical material benefit. One woman over 50 years of age, with a crippled husband and a teenage son to support, who had worked all her life for modest wages, obtained an executive position paying $10,000 a year. Another woman husband was made a partner in the firm for which he worked. 2 men were advanced dramatically to new positions and much larger salaries, and the other 3 were helped emotionally to a much better understanding of life and a greater composure in the face of the daily turbulence we all have to meet. One of these 3 was also helped in a business way. Unquestionably, there were other benefits, but they were clearly obvious. In addition, the sender was unexpectedly helped in several ways. 1, a rapport with each receiver was established, and a greater understanding between the sender and each receiver resulted. 2, the sender's awareness of himself, of his own mistakes, weakness, and glamours was heightened to a point where he was partly able to clear his own life and act with greater control of himself and his environment. 3, the sender received an inflow of what can only be described as great spiritual strength. These are the specific benefits which were observed to accrue as a result of daily practice of this prayer of love, a practice which involved only a modest amount of thought and effort and not more than 15 minutes. Feel love, send love, encapsule a small portion of this kingdom of heaven, as Jesus called it, and bestow it to another, so that it may grow like the mustard seed in the parable and bring comfort and peace to many. Earlier in this chapter, I spoke of the prayers offered by most people and described them as childish. These are the prayers that are directed to God or to some entity asking for material assistance or benefit. They are not childish because they are directed to God. On the contrary, we should all look to God with a childlike faith. But they are childish in their expectation of certain material benefits and in their lack of understanding of how that help may be given. As you realize, there are many situations in which we cannot help ourselves, but can be helped by another. In fact, There would be little or no progress in this world if the enlightened few did not give their aid to the vast ignorant and helpless majority. Thus we can and should petition for aid, pray for help, so to speak, whenever we feel need of it. This prayer can be directed to God or any other advanced being that we are confident can help us. And these great ones are ever ready to help in every way they can. To receive and employ this help is our problem, and most of us never solve it. To refresh your mind a bit, we live and move in a realm of energy. Our own well-being and ability to accomplish things depends upon the amount of energy we're capable of wielding. When we ask for help from one greater than ourselves and he responds, he sends energy. It is up to us to receive this energy, grasp or lay hold on it, and then employ it to achieve the objective we seek. To give a homely analogy, it is just as if we wanted to buy a house costing $20,000 and we had only $200. So we go to a rich man and tell him we need the house and ask his help. He is moved to give us assistance, but does he give us the house? Of course not. He gives us money enough to buy the house, in this case a check for $20,000. Now it is up to us to convert this check into cash and buy the house. Some are so ignorant they will say, I asked for a house and all I got was a piece of paper, and then resentfully throw the check away. Others will cash the check, but then start spending the money for things such as a new car, a few paramoodle tickets, and maybe several cases of whiskey. Still no house. You understand, and can carry it on from there. When we pray for help from God or some great being, we must be prepared to receive that great energy and direct it properly to the object of our desire. First, we must have a receptacle large enough to receive and retain the amount of energy we require. Then, having accumulated the necessary volume, we must be careful not to dissipate it foolishly. One of the great teachers describes it in this way. People talk much about the aid which they expect from us. Let us analyze the capacity of people to accept this help. Each person who dreams of assistance has already selfishly defined the direction and measure of it. Can an elephant find a room in a low cellar? But the seeker for help considers neither the proportion nor the suitability of the help. Let us examine the plight of one young man who prayed for help. This young man had a small job and it did not pay very well. He wanted more money and the better living conditions it would bring. So he prayed to his master for help, and his master sent him a bountiful supply of energy on the returning wave. Now this young man, like you and me, was actually looking for a new job or a windfall of money as an answer to his prayer, and he did not recognize the inflow of energy. But he felt fine and so strong that he immediately proceeded to expend a part of this energy in love affairs with several girls. These girls demanded lots of attention, so he soon found himself involved in all sorts of side issues of interests to them, but no real importance to himself. One liked the theater, another nightclubs, a third wanted to attend lectures, a fourth was a pop music fan, and so on. In the meantime, this extra energy had given a stimulus to the young man's mind, and he had several very good ideas for making money, any one of which, if developed, might have led to a fortune. But he was too involved with these young ladies, and soon the energy he received had been so dissipated there was not enough left to carry out even one of his ideas. When his job did not miraculously change, the young man was very disappointed and blamed his master for not having sent the help for which he had prayed so ardently. So his master said, "Must lilies flower during the winter time, or a spring burst forth from a rock in the desert in order to prove our merit? O maker of the desert and lord of the cold, you have created your own thirst and shudder from the cold of your own heart. You have encrusted your way with selfishness and find time only to guard the soles of your feet from the thorns which you yourself have planted. So my help takes flight like a startled bird, and my messenger hastens back. Reject it." And this concludes the ancient secret of the power of prayer. Some really powerful and important ideas that are indicated in this particular chapter. We learn these same secrets in Neville Goddard's book, The Art of Prayer, as well as his lecture, The Secret of Prayer. And these are also reflected in Joseph Murphy's teachings, as well as Anthony Norvell's. The only thing that may seemingly contradict with those teachings is that we are separate. In truth, when we're praying, we are always praying to ourselves. We're not praying to some dude that's on a throne a million miles away on a planet somewhere. But we are still in our minds and consciousness have this feeling of separation. And so sometimes it helps us, in terms of meditation, to envision some other being that we're meditating or praying towards. Ultimately, it is all within. And so it is helpful to learn how to visualize properly, but also the process of prayer helps us to understand our own motivations, our selfishness, our true desires. If you're afraid to pray to your master or to God for some things, why are you afraid to pray for those things? It's very indicative of what may be blocking you if you're fearing praying to God for anything that you want. There's a profound technique that's indicated here on how to send love by creating a feeling of love, of warmth, of goodwill in your breast and imagining a glowing pink aura, then visualizing it clearly in your mind's eye, and then by act of will sending a portion of your aura to that person. I've been doing this for a while now. I do it with my kids, my family, my friends, people on Facebook, people on YouTube and chat. I do it all the time. It's one of the ways I send love and light. When I tell people I send love and light, that's what I do. And as indicated here, research has shown that this really works. Now, part of that could come from those people knowing that love is being sent to them, but I think it works. And the reason I think it works so effectively is that you're not imagining something specifically for them. The love has an intelligence and it knows what's best for them. And sending this love is sending this intelligent energy to them so that it can transform their life in the best possible way. And it's quite true. When we pray for others, it's much easier than praying for ourselves. But we must take action even when we pray. And when we wait for our prayers, bad things can happen. As the example given of the person that visualized the $5,000 but did nothing to get it and eventually loses part of his foot. I've seen people visualize a large amount of money. Brian, I want 100,000. I'm going to imagine 100,000. What are you trying to do to get it? Nothing. It's just going to come to me. And so they hope for a lottery ticket. They hope for some sort of win to happen. And they imagine the $100,000. And then a close family friend dies. And they leave 100,000 in their will. Did you really want your close family friend to die? Is that what you wanted when you were imagining this? So be careful in what you're imagining and open the doors for the actual energy to come to you in the right ways and for your manifestation to work. There's lots of things we can talk about this. I would love to know about your thoughts on it. What is the secrets to prayer for you? When prayers have been answered for you, what were you doing and how did it work? Share your thoughts in the comments. The more we see and understand the way that prayers are answered by others, the more we can understand how prayers will be answered for ourselves. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.